Okay, today is Thursday, May 18th. Boys, Tuesday night had Lakers Nuggets game one. Jokic played absolutely amazing, was the best player on the field by far. Lakers came back, though, in the second half a little bit, made some really good adjustments in the second half, and really scared the Nuggets leading up to game two heading into Thursday night here.
Yeah, I feel better about the Lakers actually than I do about the Nuggets because this felt like an A plus kind of game from the Nuggets. They shot the ball so well, 55% throughout the game. Was hitting a lot of long twos, a lot of threes. Jamal Murray played great. Jokic obviously had one of the best games we've seen in playoff memory. But the Lakers still almost stole this game, and I think that Darvin Ham's going to make adjustments. We've seen the Lakers have a couple clunkers during the playoffs. They had a defensive clunker last night. Their offense was fine. Anthony Davis is going to get his. LeBron's going to get his. As long as they can get that third, fourth guy, whether it's Hachimura, whether it's Reeves, whoever it is, I think the Lakers are actually going to be fine in this series. I'm not concerned about them after game one.
Do you think the Nuggets are the hardest team Lakers have played so far?
Yeah, I don't think there's
Yeah.
any doubt about it. When you look at the Nuggets series, what they've gone through to this point, Phoenix, really no depth. That was really what killed them. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker had a couple great games, but there was nobody else on that team that was going to do much of anything. And then the Timberwolves are a gritty team that just figures out ways to beat themselves. So, yeah, I would say any team involving Anthony Davis, LeBron James, yeah, I'd say it's the hardest team they played so far.
Yeah, and I would even argue that the Lakers might actually be the hardest team that the Nuggets have played this year. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
Knicks.
so.
I
Yeah.
mean, not the Knicks. The Suns were definitely banged up. They really didn't have an identity once Chris Paul went down towards the end. There, they kind of had to figure out things and kind of revamp their entire lineup that really hurt them. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a really good series. Do you guys think it goes to seven, or do you think Nuggets take both games at home, get a game also in LA, and then this may only go to like five or six?
I think it's
I
seven
think
games.
so. I think it goes to 7 games. I really thought that this series was going to go maybe even 5 or 6 games with the way the Nuggets played, but I think the Lakers are going to really give them a run for their money in this series with the way they played last night, with the way they adjusted their lineup, and I think that I def I definitely think that the Nuggets that's the hardest team they have played so far in the playoffs, probably the season. I think the Nuggets are actually going to. I still think they're going to win this series and get to the NBA Finals here.
First time all playoffs, these playoffs, Lakers have been behind in a series. They've not been behind yet in this playoffs. Also, kind of weird. It was the one of those rare games where Anthony Davis played really well, but the Lakers did not win. It's usually when Anthony Davis, kind of shows up when he does show up. Lakers end up winning those games. I mean, last or Tuesday night he had 40 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, and 2 steals. Was definitely a game changer for the Lakers. And like I said, rare to see the Lakers not come out with a win when he does play so well. We'll transition now. We have the game coming up at the time of this recording. We're recording on Wednesday. Celtics-Heat coming on in about an hour. I'm really excited to see this game. It's basically going to be the Tatum versus Butler show. Um, but Zach, I mean, just out of those two, who do you think is going to be more of an asset to their team this series? Jimmy Butler or Jayson Tatum?
The answer has to be Jimmy Butler because if it's not Jimmy Butler, then this series is over in 5 games. Jimmy Butler is as important to his team as any player left in these playoffs, obviously. The Celtics won the Sixers series without Jason Tatum really doing a whole lot until he hit a couple late threes in game six. And then obviously he was dominant game seven, broke Steph Curry's 2 week old 50-point game seven record. But outside of that, he really wasn't a big factor in this series. And I remain convinced that if Jimmy Butler does not go off, Miami has no chance to win this series because you look at just the overall team, the Celtics are the better team. So I think he has to be the guy that steps up more, or this is not going to be a series. Plus, if Jayson Tatum plays great, which I expect him to, but they can just as easily win games when Jaylen Brown is playing well. And you can make the argument that Jaylen Brown's actually been their most consistent playoff performer to this point. So I think the answer has to be Jimmy.
Is this a legacy game for Tatum? In other words, if he plays really well, outplays Butler, he's top three player in the league, and if he doesn't, we just kind of continue to look at him as just a really, really good player. Like, what do you think of Tatum? Does he have to play really well in this series to be considered one of those top three players in the NBA?
He
That
does.
depends. depends. Like if Jaylen Brown plays great, Jayson Tatum plays decent, and Celtics win, then it's not really a factor. Like I look at it more as Jayson Tatum's already been to an NBA Finals. At this point, it's time to win a championship. I'm not really thinking a whole lot about what's going to happen before they get to the Finals. If he steps up in the Finals and plays great, then yeah, he's in that conversation. I think the Celtics can win the series without Jayson Tatum having to go off.
He's been pretty
Yeah.
inconsistent all season, actually. Even in the playoffs, he has been good. He's been better, obviously, with the Sixers series, hitting those big threes late in game 6 and having a 51-point game in game 7. I think he needs to step up for the Celtics. I think this is going to be a pretty easy series for them to win. If, let's say, Jimmy Butler goes off, I think Miami can get it to 6 games, maybe even still Celtics in 5. Still think the Celtics are the better team, but I think Miami could give them a run till the 6th game. But I see the Celtics winning, and I see the Nuggets obviously winning in the Western Conference. So it's going to be a Celtics Nuggets final, and I would have said that at the beginning of the playoffs, but I would definitely say once again, I'd stick with my prediction.
The Heat and the Celtics can't get enough of each other. They played now, have seen each other in the Eastern Conference Finals 3 of the last 4 years. It's gonna. This game goes to 7 in my end. It in my mind, this game goes to 7. I mean, and I think it might even come down to a last minute 3 by Butler or Tatum to kind of live or die, as they say, and move on. But it's really evenly matched, though. If you kind of look at just behind the scenes a little bit, a better coach. The Heat have that bookmark check marked off. Better starting 3 for the Celtics, though. Tatum, Brown, and Horford, versus, of course, Butler or Adebayo and Strauss. He'd have a better bench, though. However, Celtics have a deeper bench, especially with how Malcolm Brogdon has been playing lately. It's one of the best offenses in the playoffs with the Celtics against one of the best defenses, one of the most physical defenses in the playoffs this year. It's going to be a really good game, and I'm excited to see this thing go to 7. And I think every single game is going to be prime time, and within 5, 6 at the most 7 points. We had now Doc Rivers keeping in the NBA, fired from the Philadelphia 76ers on Tuesday. Excuse me. Justin, let's just start with you. What are your thoughts on Doc Rivers getting fired?
I think this wasn't the best decision by the Sixers. I think that Doc Rivers was very. I think Doc coached a good postseason. It wasn't just his fault. It was Harden and Embiid didn't show up in the last 2 games. Harden scored 3 points in the fourth quarter of Game 6 and Game 7 combined were 3 points. So Harden did not show up. Neither did Joel Embiid. I think it's more on Joel Embiid and James Harden. They cannot play together in Philadelphia, and this is a fault of the Sixers organization. They almost had Jayson Tatum. They traded back in 2017. They traded up, to get Markelle Fultz with the number 1 pick, leaving Jayson Tatum to the Boston Celtics with the number 3 pick. They could have had that. They also could have had Jimmy Butler instead of Ben Simmons and Brett Brown. So this is the Sixers organization making a failure of itself once again and letting Jimmy Butler walk to Miami now that he's taken the team to the conference finals for the 3rd time in the last 4 years is not just a Doc Rivers decision. Doc Rivers, I think it's not his fault. I think that Doc Rivers was not the best coach in the playoffs. I understand that, but I think Embiid and Harden should have showed up, especially James Harden. But I think the Sixers are stuck right now. Do they rebuild? Do they get another star in there like a Damian Lillard, who tweeted out he loves the Sixers roster, including Joel Embiid? I would do this. I'd trade for Damian Lillard. I'd invest in a bench if I'm the Sixers. I'd let Harden walk back to Houston, and I would bring in Monty Williams as next head coach. I think it would be good for the Sixers this offseason. instead of just keeping James Harden, giving him a max, which he declined. He's expected to decline his player option and seek a 4-year max contract. I would not give that to him if I'm the Sixers. But knowing Daryl Morey, he traded for James Harden in Houston and in Philadelphia. And he's brought the Rockets up to Philadelphia, like PJ Tucker and
I like the
Anthony
Monty
Melton.
Williams. I like the Monty Williams. A lot of people are saying, Villanova's old coach, but I do like Monty Williams. I think that would be a good fit actually for the Sixers. Jay Wright, I think he's way too comfortable right now in the media booth. I don't think he's going to leave. But I do like I said, I do like Monty Williams. Doc Rivers, though, particular Game 7 resume is really bad. Has lost the last 5 Game 7s he's coached in. Has lost the most Game 7s of any coach in NBA history.
He's lost 33 games that he's had a chance to clinch a series.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what that's like? That ranks in NBA? I think that might also.
It's got to be the worst.
Yeah,
like, I can't imagine. I think his overall record was like 16-33 or something like that. When you have a chance to clinch a series, so like Game 5, Game 6, and Game 7, when he was in the bubble with the Clippers, Game 6, Game 7, the other day. Look, the fact of the matter is, something had to change in Philadelphia. And it's not going to be Joel Embiid. And more than likely, it's probably not going to be James Harden. So what's the easiest thing to fall back on? It's the coach. And now we've seen it over the last, 10 years? The last 10 years, guys that have won Coach of the Year, I think maybe Spoelstra is the only one that's left still at his current position. Like Bud's currently out of work. Monty Williams is out of work. Doc Rivers is out of work. Like, this is kind of how it goes in the NBA. It's different than just about every other sport in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about Embiid. Let's just touch base on Embiid a little bit, Zach.
Yeah.
One MVP, but a lot of people are saying now that he's really not great in the playoffs. He's gotten a lot of passes in the playoffs, and now at first it was Ben Simmons, and now it's Doc Rivers. Embiid never been past the second round of the playoffs, though. Didn't show up in this second round. He arguably gets worse as the playoffs go on. And then of course Jokic on Tuesday night, had a breakout game in the Western Conference Finals. And so, Zach, are you thinking that maybe we should delay the MVP voting a little bit until maybe even the first or maybe even as late as the second round of the playoffs?
Yeah, I definitely think that it should be delayed. Like, the regular season obviously should make up the large portion of that, and I don't think it should be after the finals because we have the NBA Finals trophy for a reason. But yeah, I think the first couple rounds of the playoffs have to factor in because you're right. Embiid did not play well at all in this postseason. Averaged only 24 points. That was like a 9-point drop off from what he had. I think from the first round to the second round, which is the most of any MVP ever. And you're right. Now Ben Simmons can't be used as an excuse. James Harden even can't be used as an excuse. Harden didn't play great, but he had 2 games where he put up 40 points in this series. He played reasonably well at times. The biggest mistake the Sixers made was letting Jimmy Butler go in 2019, because if they would have just kept Jimmy and gotten rid of Simmons, then we might be talking about the Sixers having a championship by now, because if you got Embiid, you got Butler, and you got Harden on your squad, then that's a team that's probably winning a championship, and Butler can be that crunch time kind of guy. I think Embiid is the victim of a lot of guys, and James Harden's kind of a victim of this as well, and that is the fact that games are officiated a lot tighter in the postseason. They don't get as many free throw attempts in the postseason as they do in the regular season. So that's going to be a factor. Embiid certainly has to play better in the postseason, but I understand the hesitancy behind wanting to give Jokic 3 straight MVPs when he hasn't won a championship yet, because he would have been the first guy to do it since Larry Bird. And you have to think about the guys that weren't given 3 straight MVPs, the Magic Johnsons, the Michael Jordans, LeBron James, the greatest players of all time. Like, giving Jokic 3 straight MVPs before he has a ring, I don't know if that would have sat right with a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a good point. And if you go back to Butler too, I mean, Embiid and Butler just did not get along. Butler was a bad locker room presence. We remember the stories of what happened with that scenario. But I agree, Zach definitely could have figured that out. Relationships and locker room dynamics are things that can get figured out. But losing a great player, that can't be.
And another thing was Brett Brown. Brett Brown was the coach back then. He could have been fired, according to Jimmy Butler. I mean, Jimmy Butler almost got him fired. I know Butler wasn't the best locker room presence, but he made that clutch shot. I know Harden has in the postseason this year. But Jimmy Butler, I think, would have been great in the postseason. I think he's a championship player. Obviously, look what he's doing in Miami. And I think that he could have won a title in Philadelphia with Embiid and without Ben Simmons and Brett Brown.
Yeah, well, great. Both the great Western Conference finals and Eastern Conference finals coming up these next 2 weeks. Great interview with Michael Spillane coming on later in the episode. He'll break down the Nuggets and Lakers series. A lot more to come on that in the show. But last NBA news before we move on. NBA draft lottery Tuesday night, of course. Spurs, as we all know at this point, they won the lottery, have the first round pick, and we all know it's most likely going to Victor Wembanyama from France. Funny, only seems fitting that the Spurs take a Frenchman, a big Frenchman for that matter. They had two other first round picks in their history. Both of those have been David Robinson and Tim Duncan, and we all know how they turned out. They're already well aware of the French language, as I already alluded to in the AT&T Center. Tony Parker, Boris Diaw. So I think he'll fit in great there. Obviously, the culture has a long history there with Popovich, with foreign players and meshing foreign players together with the American-born players on the roster as well. So I think he's actually going to be a really good fit there. I think Popovich and that front office and the coaching staff in San Antonio is going to be going to develop him very well. And I'm actually really excited to see how he turns out to be. And with this news, I think the Spurs actually move up to being one of the most exciting teams, right up there with the Oklahoma City, Thunder. Let's not forget, last summer, Spurs traded DeJounte Murray to the Hawks for 4 first-round draft picks. They have one extra, along with Wembanyama. They have one extra this year, and they have one in 2015, one in 2016, and one in 2017. So they definitely have a lot of things to look forward to as a Spurs fan. Their whole starting lineup is under the age of 23. Trey Jones, Jeremy Sokan, Kendon Johnson, Devin Vassett, and now Wembanyama. And so this team gonna be really fun to watch. Wembanyama, 7'5", without even shoes on, one of the best playmakers, especially for his size in the league. It's gonna be, and I'm excited. Like I said, they're up there with the Oklahoma City Thunder. For me, is one of the most exciting teams. And I'm looking forward to Spurs having their first winning season since 2018, 2019 season. As we all know, had 22 straight winning seasons before that bad slump 4 years ago started. And for me, it's going to be a great next 4 or 5 years in San Antonio for the Spurs fan. We now move to hockey. Hurricanes Panthers starts Thursday night. Excuse me. Zach, we'll keep it really general right now. Who wins this series and why?
I'm going to keep riding with the Florida Panthers. Right now, this is the hottest team in hockey. What they did to the Bruins in the first round, they knocked off the best regular season team of all time. They just won pretty handily against Toronto, and their goaltending's been fantastic. They've been able to put the puck in the net. They're averaging about 4 goals a game throughout the postseason. I see no reason why it's going to stop now.
Yeah, and I think they're an exciting team for sure. Panthers, as we all know, talked to Dan Day last episode. Miami's kind of the epicenter of the sports world right now, knocking off number 1 seeds. Miami Heat's obviously in the playoffs, NBA playoffs as well. Yeah, I'm riding the Panthers too. I think Hurricane are still going to be my pick in the Eastern Conference. I've been high on them since the playoffs even started. So, yeah, I still pick the Hurricane coming away in this series and going to the Stanley Cup Finals. But it's going to be another great series. I mean, at this point, now that we're in the conference finals for both basketball and hockey, every series is going to be great. Just a great time for sports overall. Justin, I know you were high on the Panthers in the past. Are you still riding high on the Panthers as well as coming away beating the Hurricanes in this series?
I'm actually high on the Hurricanes. I think the Hurricanes get to the Stanley Cup Finals, and that was my prediction at the beginning of the playoffs, actually. I had the Carolina Hurricanes out of the Eastern Conference, and I had the Vegas Golden Knights out of the Western Conference. So that could be a prediction coming true during this playoffs in the NHL.
Well, interesting. I actually we'll move to the next game playoff series in this hockey playoffs. I actually have the Dallas Stars going into the Stanley Cup playoffs and beating the Golden Knights in the West. Dallas, to me, I think is one of the most underrated teams leading into the playoffs this year. They were not talked about nearly enough for how good of a regular season they had. They had the seventh highest goal scoring. They were the seventh highest goal scoring team this year. Allowed the third fewest goals in the NHL. They were top five in both power play scoring and penalty killing this year. Their goalie has been absolutely amazing. Jake Oettinger, sixth
Ottinger.
highest. What's up?
Jake
That's,
Ottinger.
yeah, did I say that wrong? I don't do good with the hockey names, but yeah, Jake Oettinger, sixth highest save percentage overall in the regular season and second best save percentage on the road. Jason Robertson has been playing amazing. Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin, they've they've come into their own after having slumps in the last couple years. And Wyatt Johnson, second year player, has been amazing and been breaking out this year, especially in the playoffs. He's been so fun to watch, so fluid in traffic areas, and the way he can control the puck and his stick with his hands is amazing. Last 13 games in the playoffs this year, he's has 4 goals and 6 points, and generated 24 individual scoring chances according to the national stat trick. So I do think Dallas has been an insanely underrated team this playoffs, and I do actually have them beating the Golden Knights in the West here. Fun fact: a lot of people probably don't know, and I also did not know. The coach, Pete DeBoer, actually was fired from Vegas last year. Right as he was fired from the Golden Knights last year, right as the Stars off season began, right when they were eliminated. So I'm definitely curious to see this matchup. The old coach going against his, coaching his new team, going against his old team. It's going to be a great Stanley Cup, and I'm excited to see this game go. And I do think this game go. I think this series goes to 5, though. I don't think this series goes to 7. I think that Dallas is a better team than the Vegas Golden Knights. I think Golden Knights have challenges on goalkeeping. They've had it all year. And I really do think Pete DeBoer is going to get his team pumped up and playing well against his old team. And I think Dallas ends up taking it in 5, actually. We'll finish the show off with some NFL news. Zach Peacock has a playoff game this year in the NFL playoffs. How do you think that's going to work out? And do you think it's going to be enjoyed by the fans, or it's going to be a disaster and kind of fail on
Well,
us?
it's not going to fail because people are going to figure out a way to watch the NFL playoffs. I'm not a big fan of it overall because I don't like people having to cut the cord. I don't like people having to pay to watch NFL games beyond their typical cable package or YouTube TV or whatever else they might use. But for people like me that already have Peacock and I watch shows on there, it's not that big of a deal. And this is probably going to be the wave of the future. We're going to see more people, as if we're not already. Most people these days watch television on Hulu, Netflix, Peacock. They only watch live television for sports. And now they're trying to put sports on these streaming platforms. I think it's the wave of the future. I think it's going to be used more often. I'm surprised they're dipping their toes with a playoff game. I was even surprised they put Bills Chargers on there because that's a meaningful game, or we think is going to be a meaningful game late in the season. So it's just about trying to get money from people, obviously. And I think we're going to see more of it. I think Paramount's probably going to do it pretty soon. I think when Fox gets their own subscription service, they're probably going to do the same thing. ESPN Plus is probably going to put some higher profile games. They put a couple London games on there last year, which nobody really cared about. But this is the first time that we've really seen games that people care about being put on streaming services. And I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think it's a step too far. I think the ratings are probably going to be down as a result of it. And I'm going to be interested to see if they do it again next year. But I think there's going to come a time where it's normalized. And maybe with Amazon taking over Thursday Night Football last year, that's already been the case. I don't think it's normalized yet. I think within 5 years, it probably will be.
Well, I was surprised, and you kind of alluded to it, Zach. There's actually good games that are coming on Peacock this year. Usually the streaming services like we've seen in Amazon and we've seen with Thursday Night Football as well. We've seen with Thursday Night Football, in the past with Amazon, the games aren't usually good. So I was surprised to see some meaningful games, especially a playoff game. And you mentioned, regular season game against the Chargers and Bills. It's interesting to see meaningful, good games actually coming on these streaming platforms. And like I said, I just hope it doesn't crash. I hope ratings don't dip either, because people deserve to watch football. And like you said, people will always watch football, and they'll find a way to watch football, whatever means it takes. But it's a nice experience or experiment, and it just kind of shows you how the way that professional play is moving in America. We're going off of cable and we're going on the streaming platforms, and within 5, 6, 7 years, that's just how it's going to be, and that's just how you're going to have to watch your teams and your games going forward.
I don't think it's going to be all of it. I think they're just going to put a select few games here and there. I think they might even put a first round playoff game. I think that might start to be a norm. I don't think they're ever going to get to a world where conference championship games and the Super Bowl are ever going to be on streaming platforms or on pay-per-view or anything like that.
Yeah, I think so too. I still think they'll go with the streaming, but I don't think it's going to be as big as we think it is. I know streaming is kind of the wave of the future for all sports and for everything outside of sports pretty much. But I do think that they're going to play into the streaming roles, especially starting up, at this time. And I still think they'll broadcast games on TV as well. I mean, maybe it won't be fully normalized, but I think it's going to be the next big thing. They're trying to make it the next big thing in sports.
When you see the Amazon schedule this year, looks a whole lot better than it did last year.
I don't even know if streaming platforms could handle big games like the Super Bowl. I don't think the viewership alone, I don't know if just a site, online platform would be able to just even handle the traffic without crashing. That's just, we'll see though. I mean, it's interesting times. Like I said, cable in general is just is dying every single year. Not only just sports, but just in, sitcoms, news, everything. And nothing is, cable is kind of moving away into more of a digital platform. And this is just another example how sports are kind of following its path. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next, 5 to 10 years. So like I said, great show today. We have Michael Spillane from Denver talking about the Nuggets and Lakers series. We have also have Jonathon Simpson on from the Dallas area, going to give us a great breakdown into the Dallas Golden Knights series, as we already alluded to today. And just stick around. Great interview. Get more insight into those series and who they think are going to win, and if they even go further than this series and eventually can win the Stanley Cup Finals. So without further ado, we'll bring on Michael Spillane. Welcome on Jonathon Shipman, in-house DJ for the Dallas Stars at the American Airlines Center. Jonathon, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it. We know you're busy right now with what's going on, of course, with the Dallas Stars. We'll start there though. Playing Vegas starting Friday, game 1, rematch of the 2020 Western Conference Finals. We know what happened there, unfortunately. But I'm gonna start here though. Dallas was one of the sleeper teams, very underrated team, quiet team, going into the playoffs. Athletic did a poll with 41 of their hockey writers. I think 5.5% of them, like 2 out of 41 of them, picked Dallas to win the Stanley Cup, with 80% going to the Bruins and the Oilers. 80% of those votes. Why were they being slept on so much? And what has changed? I mean, let's start there. Why were they being slept on so much going into the playoffs?
I think partially just because we're not as a traditional big hockey market, and you're seeing right now, Rope Hintz is taking the playoffs by storm. I think he's 1 point behind McDavid right now, who is obviously not in the playoffs anymore. So he should take over the top spot in terms of points in the playoffs. Probably in game 1, honestly, the way he's playing. And I think it's a team that's nicely constructed. It's got a nice mix of youngsters like rookie Wyatt Johnston, who somehow was left off the Calder finalist. And you just saw in Game 7 what this kid's capable of, and he just turned 20 years old. I'm not sure exactly why they were slept on. They're not a sexy pick. They're not a Toronto or a Boston or an Edmonton where you've got Pasternak, Marchand, or, if you go to Toronto, you've got Tavares, Matthews, Nylander, all the star power. I think right now the Stars are starting to make a name for themselves, though, throughout the NHL. They play an exciting brand of hockey. This isn't the same 2020 team that was led by Rick Bowness. Rick Bowness, he did a great job here as head coach, especially taking over in the circumstances that he did with Jim Montgomery leaving all of a sudden. But this team is way different now in terms of its style. They're much more aggressive. They still have the backbone, which is their goaltender in terms of Jake Ottinger. In 2020, it was obviously Hudobin, but the way that Otter's taken over, he's 22-1-3 following a loss. So if he does have a bad game, he bounces back and has an amazing game the next game. And it's what, in Game 6 against the Kraken, they pulled Jake early in the second period. And I heard an interview with Tyler Seguin where Seguin said that when Otter came off the ice, Pete DeBoer was saying how great Otter was, and it was the team in front of him was the reason that he was pulled. And I think, honestly, they were overlooked just because they had a little bit of a rough second half of the season. They started off great. They had the top spot in the Western Conference for a long time, and then Mason Marchment got hurt, Tyler Seguin got hurt, and the Stars really need all four lines to be able to roll like that to be successful. Because if that's not happening, then you can key on that top line of Robo, Hintz, and Pavelski. And if you don't have those other lines, if those other lines aren't performing or they aren't healthy or they aren't rolling, then it makes it that much easier for the opponent to shut down all of our top guys.
One of the biggest reasons people are citing Dallas had struggle against Las Vegas in 2020 was their offense wasn't as good as Vegas offense was. You can argue that Vegas is very similar to how they were back in 2020, but the Stars offense only gotten better. And it's still surprising to me that Vegas is still the betting favorite to win. It's kind of funny. I mean, they're in their backyard. There might be some bias there. I don't know, but
yeah,
it just seems kind of Dallas this year, 7th highest goal scoring team in the league. Offense obviously greatly improved. Like you said, their starting forwards are the best in the playoffs, if not the best in the league so far, and yet they're still just not getting that recognition that they really deserve. Dallas played Las Vegas 3 times in the regular season, won all 3 matchups. Now 2 of those were shootouts, but that being said, with the fact that their net rating is only a difference of 4, do you see this game going to 7? I mean, I don't see this game finishing before 7 and 5 or 6 because I just both teams are going to be so hard to put away.
Yeah,
and that they're just so evenly matched. And is that what kind of people are saying around Dallas too? Is that they expect this to go to 7?
yeah, and I would not be shocked at all if it goes 7. I think the one place, and it's an important place that the Stars have the edge, is in net with Ottinger over Aiden Hill. I think has been the starter for Vegas, and he's been playing great. I think he took over in the 3rd game of this last round, and I haven't really been able to watch a lot of Vegas against Edmonton just because we were playing a lot and I had other gigs and stuff. But I think that we have the edge in net, and I think that that's ultimately is what's going to allow us to advance in this series. Like you said, it's a very evenly matched team, and I actually think that the Kraken were a tougher matchup for us than Vegas, and it's just the way that they play. The Kraken are so fast. In Game 1 when we scored early, Joe Pavelski in his return scores the first goal. Everybody's going crazy. They score, then we score, and the next thing you know, we're down 4-2. They scored 3 goals in 52 seconds. Now Vegas has a lot of firepower, and they're capable of doing that as well. But I don't think that they're as pesky as the Kraken were. I mean, every single line that the Kraken threw out there were just a nightmare for us to deal with. And if they had more skill, I think on those lines, it would have been a much more difficult. I mean, it was already difficult enough, but I think that the Kraken would have a better chance. Like if Burakovsky, for example, was healthy for them, I think a player like that on another line could have really they could have advanced real easily. I think if they were a little bit healthier. Even Daniel Sprong was out the last few games, so I think that the Stars we were a little fortunate in terms of our health versus their health, and I think when it comes to Vegas, I mean, you know, they're very similar to when we played them in 2020, but now they have Jack Eichel, who obviously is a huge superstar in the league. I've always loved watching him play, even when he was with Buffalo. That was like the only reason to watch the Sabres play. And now he's on an exciting team with Vegas and Mark Stone, obviously, who is I like watching his goal celebrations unless it's against the Stars because he gets so amped up. It's just fun to see a guy who scored as much as he has still get that excited every time he does. But yeah, I think this series is going to go 7 just because, I mean, they're super evenly matched. Like you said, 2 of the games went to shootouts. And I believe I know the last one that we played at home against them, they did not have Jack Eichel for that game, and that one went to a shootout. And we weren't healthy either at the time, but missing Jack Eichel is a pretty big hole to fill in your lineup. So I feel confident in the Stars' chances in advancing in this series, but I think you're right that it's going to be very evenly matched, and I expect it to go the distance.
Well, let's talk about that. The starting 3 forwards for the Las Vegas, Barbashev, Eichel, and Marchessault. You know, how do they line up against your starting 3? And is this going to be a matchup that really needs to go to the, second, third, fourth lines, or do you think this is a matchup that really is decided more by the starters?
I think that's going to be, and that's stuff that like develops over a series, right? Like even against Minnesota and Seattle, the way Dallas played those teams in game 1 versus game 6 or game 7 were totally different in terms of who was out there on the ice. Like the Stars ended up having Rope and Robo and Pavelski against Kaprizov because Rope is a really good defensive forward as well. I think one day, maybe now after this postseason run, he'll get more of consideration for a Selke in the future. Because a lot of the plays that he scores on or that the Stars score on, you'll hear Rope with a stick lift or Rope pokes the puck away. Like his defense generates a lot of offense for the Stars. But I think with those lines, I mean, what it's really going to come down to is Miro Heiskanen. I mean, that's a guy that I think, we mentioned Rope, Wyatt Johnson. I think Miro is another one of the guys that nationally throughout the league is not getting nearly enough credit. And nobody really knew how good he was. I mean, even Pete DeBoer, when he came over, he said, look, I knew the guy was good, but he's like, I didn't realize this is who we have on defense. This is our stud ace defenseman. And he's averaged, I think, he's averaging almost 30 minutes a game. So he's playing half the game. And without him, the Stars fall apart defensively. He's the key to everything that we do. So I think Miro will be out there whenever Eichel is out there. And I think the forwards, our top 3 lines, and really our 4th line too, is a great defensive line as well. We're a very defensively responsible team like we were under Rick Bowness, but now the Stars are able to score a lot too, which is nice.
Wyatt Johnson, 24 individual scoring chances according to the natural stat trick this year. This playoffs, I mean, 4 goals and 6 points in the playoff games he's played so far. Obviously had a really good regular season. He's just fun to watch too. I mean, he's so fast in high traffic situations, like the way he can just skate around people so fluently, and like he's so good with his hands too, with the puck and the stick. The way he's just able to kind of manipulate himself around the ice and around, like I said, around people, around traffic areas as well. It's just really fun to watch. Yeah. Is he, in your opinion, is he going to be one of the next breakout stars in the league? And is it kind of unfortunate that he is in a lower market hockey town like Dallas when he really does have so much talent and had so much to prove?
Well, and I mean, I think you're seeing it right now. I mean, did you see the series clinching goal he scored against the Kraken? Like, even Pete DeBoer after the game, he was like, look, I don't know how many players, because the way that he was coming down the ice, that's on my side of the ice where I'm set up. So I'm up in the lower section at the top of the section. So I can see that net very well. And I was like, all right. So he's going to the backhand, so he's probably going to try to scoop around him and score on the other side. And then when he just lifted it and roofed it over his shoulder, like, I lost my mind because I didn't even, like, and Pete DeBoer said that. He's like, I don't know how many people would have had that opportunity and would have even thought to try that, much less pull it off. And so, I mean, while it is unfortunate that, nationally he doesn't get the recognition that he deserves, he's learned from the best this season. He's been living with Joe Pavelski in his rookie year. So he lives with about the best role model you could have in the game of hockey. And he's mentioned it too. He's like, look, he's excited to be where he's at. There's a cool like symmetry too between him and Tyler Seguin, because Tyler Seguin was 19 years old when he won the Stanley Cup with the Bruins, and now Seguin has obviously been playing with Wyatt Johnston, who just turned 20 and is on the quest to win a cup now. So Sagan's been giving him advice on how to deal with the playoffs and things like that. And I think that the team relishes in the fact, they enjoy the fact that they're underdogs, that nobody really gave them a shot to make it this far. A lot of people were thinking, especially when they went down one game and they were down 0-1 in both the first two series, there was all sorts of, oh, here we go. Here the Dallas Stars are falling apart. But this Dallas Stars team is different. They have everything. I feel, and Wyatt Johnston and Jake Ottinger have both multiple times talked about, there's a real belief in that room that they're going to win the Stanley Cup this year. And this was before they were down to the last four teams. Like, this has been a belief throughout the season. And it's been a really cool thing to watch, even through the ups and downs. But I think Wyatt Johnston is definitely going to be one of he is an up-and-comer. I mean, he's the youngest player in NHL history with a Game 7 series clinching goal.
Wow.
And he did it in that fashion, with the backhand up over Grubauer's left shoulder. So I think he's definitely going to be an up-and-coming star. And the great news with the Stars is we have a lot of other players in the minors that are either as highly touted or like right below Wyatt Johnston. Like, it's him and Logan Stankoven are like the two top prospects, and only one of them made the team out of the training camp this year, and it's widely expected that Logan Stankoven will make the team next year. So there's a lot of current excitement and future excitement for the Stars right now.
A big storyline people aren't really talking about is Pete DeBoer fired last year by the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah.
I think it was the day the Stars began their off season. You always love having an old coach or a coach go against his old team. I mean,
yeah,
that's a storyline I'm actually surprised, the media outlets, ESPN, all that, they're not really honing on more and really making that more of a storyline, because I think everyone likes to see that when a guy goes against his former team, especially one that's been having so much success and one that got fired from that former team. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. Interesting matchup, though, in many reasons. But one of the big things, one of the big storylines for this matchup is it's kind of a good 5-on-5 team against a really good penalty team, right?
Yeah.
Vegas Golden Knights, probably one of the best 5-on-5 teams in the National Hockey League. They've outscored opponents 30-15 on 5-on-5. While the Stars have a goal differential of only +1 when it comes to this. But the Stars, though, I think they were top 5 in both penalty scoring and penalty killing this year. So it's a matchup between 5-on-5 versus penalty, and it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays a role. I really think that's going to have a big impact on how the series plays out.
Yeah, I mean, the Stars power play had. I mean, it would have they had an unsustainable success at the beginning. In the first 3 months, I mean, they sustained it, so I guess it's not unsustainable. But they had they were scoring at I think almost like a 25%, 30% clip, and then they had like a 2-month falling off. But the thing is, you just mentioned Pete DeBoer. The best thing about Pete DeBoer is his ability, or one of the best things, is the fact that he never panics. Like, when the power play was going bad, he didn't freak out and, I'm panicking, so let's panic. Let's move a whole bunch of people around. He basically kept the power plays the exact same and just said, hey, look, I believe in you guys. Just the puck's just not going our way right now. We'll figure it out eventually. And he's done that. And after Game 7, a lot of Jake Ottinger mentioned it. Tyler Sagan mentioned it, just what a calming presence that is, especially in a Game 7, that Pete DeBoer wasn't freaking out after they got beat real bad in Game 6. So I think, in this series, and just like in the first two series, there was no secret. Both opposing coaches said we've got to keep Dallas off of their power play. Their power play is about as good as it gets. And, if you want to beat the Dallas Stars, you have to play disciplined hockey. And I think that's one thing that the Stars are good at, is when they're at their top of their game, they're a really good puck possession team. And that's obviously going to draw a lot more penalties because they're trying to strip you of the puck, or you're creating chances, and they're going to cross-check you to, avoid a goal being scored on you. So, and in 5-on-5 too, I think the Dallas Stars, in the first round against the Minnesota Wild, the Stars were on the power play a lot. But the Kraken did a really good job of playing a disciplined brand of hockey. And they played a lot of 5-on-5 against the Kraken, and they looked really good, and that was a matchup where towards the end of the series, the Stars, Pete DeBoer, had to take out Yanni Hakanpää and he's been one of our top defensemen all season long. He paired with Esa Lindell were like our shutdown pair all season. And in Game 6, they were on the ice for 5 of the 6 goals scored against. Yeah. They came out afterwards, and Esa Lindell said, "I don't know the last time I played that bad." I don't think Hakanpää talked after the game, but in Game 7, Pete DeBoer sat Yanni Hakanpää, subbed in Colin Miller, who's a little bit faster skater, not as big. It was just a tough matchup for Yanni Hakanpää. And so I think that, 5-on-5, Game 1, they'll probably roll out with what they rolled out all season long and what works. You'll see Hakanpää back with Lindell and the normal defensemen and the normal forward lines. But I think once Pete watches them play 5-on-5, he'll make adjustments like that, switching people around. When Pavelski came back from injury, he put him on a line with Domi and Marchment because Sagan was playing so well with Rope and Robo. And then when that started to fizzle out, he just swapped them back and everything started clicking again. So I think that, and Bruce Cassidy said this about the Stars. He said, "Hey, we got to keep them off the power play because they're lethal on it." So I think if you want to win against the Dallas Stars, you have to get great goaltending and you have to play disciplined hockey. And I think that's the biggest key to beating this.
Yeah. Fans, always love high scoring teams, right? Seattle Kraken, team that comes to mind. Great offense, super fun to watch, super explosive, as you were alluding to earlier. Dallas's defense, though, got better in the midseason. They got Niels Lundqvist. Are they the best defense in the league, in your opinion, in your unbiased opinion, as best as you can? Are they the best defense in the league, not just the playoffs, but in the entire NHL?
I think, if they're not, I think they're a top 5 defensive team for sure. Just because, and a lot of that falls back on Jake Ottinger and the way that he plays, and even Scott Wedgwood, our backup goalie, he's incredible too. Like the fact that we have a 1-2 punch like that. Like that's such a great luxury for us to have. I think, defensively, the Stars were really good, but I was saying earlier, I think Miro Heiskanen covers up a lot of our defensive ineptitude at times because he's so good at what he does and he plays so much. Like when we lost him in Game 3 of the Kraken series, they got scored on like 4 times the rest of the period without him. He could have come back and he wanted to come back, but Pete DeBoer said, "Look, let's just rest you up, stitch you up, and let's have you ready for, Game 4. So, yeah, I think we're one of the top defensive teams, but I do think that, we sometimes do have a tendency to be caught in odd man rushes and things like that. And I think you'll see that early on in the Vegas series. I think Vegas will probably have more odd man rushes at the beginning of the season or at the beginning of the series than at the end, because I have a feeling and the Stars are just going to have to adjust to that and figure it out like they did with Seattle, because that's how it was with Seattle. In Games 1 and 2, there was a ton of odd man rushes, and then it slowly started to dissipate. And then by Game 7, I don't think they had a single odd man rush and really not any super high scoring high danger chances other than obviously the goal they scored at the end. So
Yeah.
I think that they're definitely one of the top defensive teams, but I think it's more based off of Jake Ottinger. And honestly, Thomas Harley is a young guy we haven't talked about yet. He's a defenseman who has been highly touted in the Stars prospect pool for a long time now, and he had high hopes to make the roster this year, but they kept him down with the Texas Stars and had him solely focus on his defense. He's a great offensive defenseman. They didn't have him on the power play. They had him out there on the penalty kill. Like, they had him down there for a reason, to get his reps in. And, they traded for Niels Lundqvist early in the season, but when the trade deadline came, they added Evgeny Dodonov, who's played for Pete DeBoer in Vegas before, and then they added Max Domi, and then they viewed Thomas Harley when he got called up at the end of the season. They viewed him as a trade acquisition, and he's looked great. I mean, I'm not sure, he's like 20, 21 years old, maybe 22.
Young. Yeah.
He's super young. Like, he's played a little bit of NHL hockey, but this is by far the most he's played. And the more that he's been playing, Pete DeBoer has been putting him in more high leverage situations. Like, I'll see him out there sometimes on the power play on the point with Miro Heiskanen. And that just goes to show, Pete DeBoer, his belief in his guys and, his willingness to trust the young guys, which is really nice to see. So I keep an eye on 55 against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. I think he's probably the next guy that people are going to be like, wait, Thomas Harley, we haven't been talking about this guy? Like, first it was Rope, then it was Wyatt, and now it's going to be Thomas Harley.
Well, third fewest goals allowed in NHL this year. And you mentioned Jake Ottinger too. Amazing in the playoffs. Definitely the best goalie remaining in the playoffs. 0.9 save percentage, just over 0.9. 3 goals per game in the playoffs, less than 3 goals per game. I think it's at like 2.7 right now or something. He's been amazing. He's been amazing all season long, really. And if the Stars are going to win, it's going to come down to their defense and their penalty killing. I think that's what they pride themselves on, and that's what they're going to have to do and keep going in order to beat the Vegas Golden Knights. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about what you do, though. I mean, you're the in-house DJ for the Stars. Let's just kind of go overview, like, just how you got that job, kind of, what you were in the position. I'm sure it was one of those stories where you were in the right position at the right time, and the job came to you. And how long you've been doing it for, and just give us a kind of an overview of like how you got to where you are.
Yeah, so it actually started during the pandemic, was when I started to hear about this job, that it was going to become available. And my friend, his name's Michael Gruber. Everybody around Dallas calls him Grubes. So I did sports radio for a long time, and so did he. And he was on 1310 The Ticket, which you've probably heard of. It's nationally super famous radio station here in Dallas. And then I worked for 105.3 The Fan, which is the home of the Dallas Cowboys. It's still a big radio station, but like the Ticket's like legendary. Like, people across the country listen to it. They've won like 1 million Marconis. Anyways, he worked for the Ticket, I worked for the Fan, and we ended up becoming friends. And then he got the Stars music director job while I was still with the Fan. And he basically got offered the Texas Rangers job, and then he reached out to me and said, hey, man, I think I'm going to take this Rangers job, and I don't think I'm going to be able to keep doing Stars. Would you be interested in doing this job for the Dallas Stars? And I was like, dude, hell yeah. Like, the Dallas Stars are my favorite team. Like, the Mavericks, the Stars, Cowboys, and Rangers. But, like, the Stars have always probably been the closest team for me, just because I grew up watching them with my family all the time. Like, we watched pretty much every game together. And so when the opportunity came up, he's like, I think you'd be really good at it. You obviously, were a board op at the Fan, and like what we do, it involves some of that, but you also need some music knowledge. And so, and I'm a musician myself. I've been a drummer for my whole life. I'm a singer too. Like, music's just been ingrained in my blood. And so, yeah, basically during the pandemic, I would drive up to Frisco and work for free and try to figure out how the job would be. And, when the pandemic ended and hockey was ready to go again, they hired me for the gig, and I'm now in my 3rd season with them. And it's, I do it for the Dallas Mavericks as well. So I do both NBA and NHL.
Awesome.
And it's a pretty cool feeling to, be involved in the team, in the atmosphere at the American Airlines Center for two of my favorite teams.
Any nice perks with the American Airlines, or is it completely separate?
Like the airline itself.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I wish I got some like miles or something for every win. Like, hey,
Yeah,
here's
right.
5,000 miles per win. Thanks for leading our team. Nah, they don't do any of that, but I do get a lot of nice perks just from the American Airlines Center itself. Like all the people there, I'm friends with. All the ushers and everybody, and so they're always, whenever I come in and I'm not working, they're always really cool and nice to me.
Well, let's talk about it some. I'm kind of curious as to how structured it is going into a game. I mean, I know what I mean by that is, do you have kind of like a rundown of what you're going to play, and how much can you deviate from that rundown, or do you try to stay pretty strict to that rundown? Like, okay, on the second opponent timeout or the first media timeout, this is being played. Like, the kiss cam is coming on at this time, so
Yeah.
we're playing this. And so I'm just kind of curious, like how, yeah, like radio, like how structured it is, and then how much are you able to actually deviate away from that game plan?
Yeah, so that's pretty much the only thing that's scheduled for the whole game for me. So whenever the game's happening and there's no timeouts, like I'm DJing based off of the vibe and what's going on in the game. Like people always ask me, like, "What are you gonna play tonight?" I'm like, "I don't know. I have to see what's happening in the game." And then so you mentioned the media timeouts. Like there'll be some stuff, like you said, like a kiss cam or a we have an NSA cam where we take video people and we get access to their text messages and we post them on the screen. We do a snack words cam, which is just it reverses the camera on people eating stuff in their seats. And so like you'll just see somebody like taking a piece of pizza out of their mouth. So and we started just doing it to opposing fans that are sitting there just to kind of make it a fun thing. But
Yeah.
that for stuff like that, I mean, I have songs that I play for those instances. And other than that, though, pretty much everything I play is on a whim. It's based off of the energy. It's, hey, are we pushing right now? Do we need to push back? Or, who's got the momentum? How can I switch the momentum? So, yeah, the media timeouts are kind of scripted, but when it comes to the actual music you hear during the game, just at a whistle for a face-off, all that stuff is just whatever I feel like playing and whatever I feel like should be played. That's a thing that I think a lot of people get confused with about this job is like, I'm a huge Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. I'm in a Red Hot Chili Peppers cover band. I almost never play the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So when people come up to me and they say, hey, I don't like this song or I don't like that song, I don't necessarily like that song either. But I'm DJing for 18,000 people. There's somebody in there that likes that song. And I played it for a more specific reason because it was upbeat. It had a good rock beat to it, or it got the people like out of their seats, or it got them singing. So there's a whole bunch of different reasons that I play the stuff that I do. And almost never does it have anything to do with myself.
Yeah, because I was wondering about that too. How it's kind of an ebb and flow, and you got to kind of find a nice balance when you do this. But in games that are blowouts, either if it's the Stars or Mavs blowing a team out, or you're getting blown out,
yeah,
you can't play downers, but at the same time, it's kind of awkward to be playing very upbeat and hype music as well. So just kind of talk about that, how you have to find that kind of ebb and flow and that middle ground where you play the music for the vibe of the stadium, which isn't the most exciting game.
Yeah.
But you at the same time you do have to still keep the crowd engaged and give them what they want to hear.
Yeah. So I mean, if we're blowing the other team out, I can play anything and everybody's gonna love it.
I bet.
Doesn't matter, So when we're getting blown out, I just try to keep it upbeat. And like my boss will literally tell me, just, hey, have fun. Just have fun, play fun music. So, because people don't want to leave, they've already paid their tickets, right? They've paid $200 to be there. They don't want to necessarily leave if you're down 4-1 in the second period. But I'm going to still play upbeat, fun, dance type music, so that at least they're enjoying that part of the game, right? And then, hey, you never know, maybe we'll score. Then, then you get a little bit closer. But
Mhm.
Yeah, I never play any like downer stuff. Like I've heard other arenas before, if they're getting blown out, they'll play like on to the next one by Jay-Z. And I get it, like if it's late, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to send that message to the team via music where it's like, you know what, just quit this game. Let's just move on to the next one. And I think it was actually maybe the Panthers that we were playing when that happened, and they ended up coming back. So maybe it was like an ironic thing, and he was trying to, whoever the music director is, was trying to like inspire him. But yeah, I think whenever we're down big, there's really no super difficult position that I get put in except for if somebody gets hurt real bad. Like when Joe Pavelski got hurt, like that's when it's really hard to get people back into a game because for the rest of that game one, everybody was wondering how Joe was doing, you know? So, yeah, to answer your question and blowout against us, just keep it upbeat, keep it fun, high energy, and then just pray that they'll score a goal or something to get to inject some sort of belief into that building.
Well, definitely a cool job. That's for sure. I think a lot of people would say that. This has been awesome, Jonathan. We really appreciate your time. I want to leave you with one last question,
Okay.
kind of going off hockey a little bit.
Okay.
My last question as we exit out of here. What are the Mavs going to do next year with Kyrie Irving, and do the fans even want him back next year?
I mean, I think that the Mavs want to keep Kyrie Irving. I know the Mavs want to keep him for sure. I think he'll end up staying unless he wants to do a thing where it's like a sign and trade to get him to the Lakers or something like that. Because I mean, with the NBA, the Mavs can give him more money than anybody else, and I don't care how spiritual you are or anything, but like the extra $30 million or whatever it is would be pretty hard to say no to, especially if he was as happy as he says he was while he was here. And from everything I've heard, he loved it here. So, or in his short time, obviously he would have liked to make the playoffs, but I think bringing another ball dominant player like that, you're going to need more than a couple months or like a few weeks to get ready for the playoffs. So
Sure.
I think that Kyrie Irving will end up staying here. And then from a Mavs fan perspective, I think that everybody wants him back. I mean, if you want to win a championship, you know, I don't see how losing him after giving up Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, and all of them, I don't see how that gets you any closer to a championship. And he was cool while he was here, and obviously like a short dose, but
Mhm.
and maybe it's a thing where like, you know, the team issue thing comes out after a few years of being there. But from everything I heard, he was a great teammate. When I don't know if you saw when Maxey hit that crazy game-winning 3 from his pass against the Lakers.
Yep.
Like the first thing that was said to Maxey after he hit that shot, because the previous game Maxey made a huge mistake against the Spurs, like just a boneheaded play, totally against just a not a Maxey type play. And then he hit that 3 to win the game against the Lakers, and Kyrie came up to him and just said, "That's redemption. That's redemption right there." Like the first guy that said that to him was Kyrie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would like to see him back, and I think Fat Mavs fans would too if you want to get another Larry O'Brien around here anytime soon.
I do genuinely think he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
He does some boneheaded things. Obviously, we're not going to get
Right.
into that. We all know
Right.
what he does off the field, but I just think he is a nice guy. I do think that the locker room does actually like him, and the people that he's around do actually like him.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he just needs to kind of stay out of trouble, and particularly in the off season, and not hurt locker rooms with all the off season drama that he brings in with what he says and what he does.
Right.
Well, Jonathan, this has been awesome. I hope they're paying you overtime at American Airlines Arena as the Stars head into the Western Conference Finals here. But
it's a lot better than not being paid at all. That's for sure.
Yeah, right. Well, we have to do this again sometime, man. This has been really fun, and like I said, I'm really hoping that your Stars come out not only this series, but then win it next series and win the whole thing as well, and get the hold up the cup.
Man, if that happens, just know that wherever I'm at, if they're on the road or at home winning the cup, I am going to be crying like a baby.
Yeah.
Happy tears.
They have won? I actually don't know this. They have won before, correct?
Yes, 1999.
1999.
I was 9 years old. I was at the parade. There's like a picture of me and my mom and my sister. So Be pretty special if they were able to pull it off this season.
Was it their only one?
Yeah, only one. They went back to the Cup the next year, and they played the New Jersey Devils in the final, and they lost. And I believe that previous offseason was, or maybe it was after that, I don't remember, but they traded Jamie Langenbrunner for Jayson Arnott, and 9 or 10-year-old me did not take it very well.
No,
I was a huge Jamie Langenbrunner fan, and they really pissed me off with that one, but I've gotten over it since then.
Well, this is their year, hopefully, right? And,
yes.
We'll see if they can get it done. 2 more rounds to go. 8 more games that they got to win, right?
8 more wins.
And get one done on Friday, and then you only have 7, and you're already 1/8 of the way there, whatever that is. I'm not going to do that. But all right, well,
I'm not a big fan.
We'll see what happens, and like I said, rooting for him, okay?
All right, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah, man. Definitely, for sure. Jonathon Shipman, in-house DJ for American Airlines Arena, the in-house DJ of both the Stars and Mavs. Yeah, Jonathon, we'll do this again sometime, okay?
All right. Have a good one, Jared.
All right. See you, man. All right, let's finish the show with our off the map and long hauls of the week. Justin, who is your off the map of the week?
My off the map of the week is Jayson Tatum. His struggles could hurt the Celtics' chances of winning a title this postseason. I still think that they could get to the finals. They could get past Miami. But could Miami pull an upset here? I don't think so. But this could still hurt the Celtics if their best player doesn't show up in the finals or in the conference finals. I think nobody's talking about how Tatum has struggled both in the postseason and the regular season, and that might hurt the Celtics. It almost hurt them against Philadelphia, but this may hurt them against Miami and maybe even against the Nuggets in the NBA Finals.
I'm going to go with the Wizards almost getting the number 1 pick. No one's talking about that, really. We all know, like I said, Spurs got the number 1 pick. They won the Wembanyama sweepstakes, but the Washington Wizards were really close to actually winning it on Tuesday night. When there were 11 numbers remaining, the Wizards actually had 6 of those 11 numbers, and they only had to gain 1 more ball for them to actually win the sweepstakes. San Antonio only had 2 of those 11 remaining numbers, and like I said, if Wizards got only 1 of those balls that were remaining, they actually would have ended up winning the lottery and got the number 1 overall pick over the Spurs. And they were that close, and they just couldn't get it. And as we all know, the rest is history, and Spurs will end up having the number 1 pick and getting Wembanyama come June. Zach, who's your off the map of the week?
Yeah, speaking of the NBA draft lottery, mine's the Portland Trailblazers. It's a franchise that has the worst NBA draft success of anybody's, or worst draft luck, because of course 1984 they draft Sam Bowie number 2. The next pick happened to be some guy named Michael Jordan, probably works at a Starbucks somewhere. I don't think anybody's ever heard of him again. 2007 they get the number 2 pick, and it ends up they pick Greg Oden with the number 1 pick instead of some guy named Kevin Durant. Again, never heard of him ever again. And so now they've got the 3rd pick, and they're behind Wembanyama. Are they going to end up with somebody like Scoot Henderson? Are they going to end up with Brandon Miller or somebody like that? But they came awfully close to finally giving Dame somebody to play with. And now they have to think about, are they going to trade the number 3 pick? That's come out in some discussions. Are they going to give up on their whole era and trade Dame? Because Dame deserves to play with somebody. He deserves a chance to actually play for a championship. And right now I just don't see it happening in Portland anytime soon. But they came that close to finally having a real teammate for him to play with, really for the first time since LaMarcus Aldridge.
Justin, long haul of the week?
My long haul of the week is Josh Harris. He owns the Sixers and the Devils and now the Commanders. It's going to be pretty weird, especially him owning a team in Washington and a team in New Jersey, both rivals of the Eagles and the Flyers. Also, the Devils are in the same division as the Capitals, I believe, and also the Sixers are in the same conference as the Wizards. He owns a division rival of the Eagles, but a Philadelphia team. It's going to be like this. It's basically going to be like, I love Philadelphia. I love the Sixers. But then you come in and play the Eagles and, you're the most hated guy.
Everyone knows about the deal, but no one really knows about the, dichotomy of the teams that he owns, and just owning. It must just be weird owning rivals, like you said, even divisional rivals at that point. So, yeah,
he might be Yeah, he might be better than Schneider, but I don't think he's going to win. I don't think the
He'll be better
Commanders are
than
going to
Snyder.
improve
He'll be
as
better than Snyder.
I
Maybe
think
not next
so.
year, but I think over time he will definitely prove to be a better owner than Snyder. I don't think you can be a worse owner than Snyder. I ask anyone,
Totally.
any sports
Maybe
fan.
Dolan, maybe
Yeah,
Jim
right.
Dolan with the Knicks and the
Even
Rangers.
then, hard to do. I'm gonna go my long haul of the week. I'm gonna go with the PGA Championship. Oak Hill starting today, Thursday. Uh, Everyone's talking about, just like the Masters. Everyone's talking about the live golfers. Bryson, Dustin Johnson, Brooks, Phil, Patrick Reed. They come in the spotlight and kind of take all the spotlight away from all the amazing PGA golfers that have stayed all season long and even last season as well. I'm really sick of the live golfers doing this on these major championships. I want really to highlight the PGA golfers that, like I said, have stuck around and been loyal to the franchise. I'm actually going to go with a long shot PGA golfer to win the PGA championships. Keegan Bradley, been a sleeper this whole season after his explosive start in the beginning of the season. Hometown in the Northeast, went to St. John's. Really familiar with Oak Hill Golf Course to begin with. He's been here before, won the PGA Championships in 2011. He has ice in his veins, one of the coolest collected guys on the board this weekend. He has one of the best driving efficiencies in the field. Amazing approach within 125 yards. No one's talking about him, and I'm going to take him to be someone that not only makes the cut, but definitely is going to be a name that we're talking about on Sunday. I think he's kind of like the Warriors this year in the NBA playoffs. Definitely not the best player on the board or in the field this weekend, but not a player that people want to particularly be matched up against and competing against late on Sunday, leading into the final couple holes. Zach, who is your long haul of the week?
Yeah, as far as the PGA Championship's concerned, I don't have a problem with live guys being there. I just want the best golfers. I don't care what tour they're on. And my pick to win the PGA Championship is actually Jon Rahm. I'm continuing to ride Jon Rahm until he doesn't go out and win tournaments. He's already won, I think, 5 this year. But my long haul is going to be the ACC. They're under a lot of scrutiny now because Florida State and Clemson are really starting to crank up the heat because the revenue sharing and the revenue that they're getting is significantly lower than the Big Ten, the SEC. In fact, I think if you doubled the ACC's annual per year amount of money that each school makes, it would still be about $10 million less than what every Big Ten school is getting. So Clemson is making way less than a team like Rutgers. Like, that doesn't seem quite right. Florida State mentioned that they're going to get less than what Central Florida is getting because Central Florida is going to the Big 12. So 7 schools, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami, Virginia Tech, and NC State are all having conversations about looking into the breaching of the contract, which runs through 2036. Why you would sign a deal through 2036 about anything right now, I have absolutely no idea. But the ACC, I think, is going to be in some trouble. I don't think that contract is going to hold up for 12 years. They're going to figure out a way to break that thing. And then I think Florida State and Clemson are going to go to the SEC. I think North Carolina is going to go to the Big Ten. I think Miami could join the SEC or the Big Ten. And I think eventually the ACC, as we know it, probably won't stand as it is right now. And I know people want to say, oh, it's a basketball conference. Yes, it is a basketball conference as far as its prestige, but save for about 2 or 3 schools in the entire country, every single college athletic program makes their money on football. And that's where all the decisions are going to get made.
Yeah, everyone's talking about the contract, but no one's really talking about how unstable it's really going to be. So, yeah, I agree with that. That's a good long haul. Yeah, great long haul. Especially because, we're not really talking about ACC, SEC, and all the conferences in college right now because college is over. I mean, baseball's finishing up maybe, and that's about it. And even that, I think, might be over. But, whenever we talk about college conferences, it's either about basketball and especially more so about football. And, something no one's really talking about right now. And, good long haul. It's something people don't really think about, but it's something to keep an eye out for as we go into the next couple years. All right, guys. Great show. Let's end with predictions as we always do. Justin, predictions heading into next week.
I think LeBron is going to have a 30-plus point game, and I think that's going to be Game 3 at the Staples Center, or what do they call it, the Crypto.com Arena? But I'm still going to always call it the Staples Center, but I think LeBron will have a 30-plus point game against the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. I think he's due for a 30-plus point game for sure.
Zach, prediction.
I think the Celtics are going to take control pretty easily against Miami. I think the Celtics, Sixers, whoever won that series is going to win the Eastern Conference, and I'm going to stick with that. I think the Celtics are just the better team. And I know Joe Mazzulla is a young coach and everything, but coaching matters in the NBA, but you know what matters more? Better players. I think the Celtics just have a better roster from top to bottom. Jimmy Butler might be the best individual player in the series, but when you combine Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, Al Horford, all those other guys, I think the Celtics are just too deep right now. So I got Boston winning this series. I think it's going to be a 5-game series in actuality. I think Jimmy's got one big game in him, but I think the Celtics are just better.
I'm going to continue to ride my bandwagon of the Hurricanes, the Carolina Hurricanes. We talked about it earlier in the show. I've been on them high in the East since the start of the NHL playoffs. I think they're going to end up beating the they're going to end up beating the Panthers this in the Eastern Conference playoffs. I actually think it's going to be 2-2 after Game 4, but I think the Hurricanes are going to take it at home in Game 5 and end up closing it out in Miami in Game 6. So that's my prediction. That'll be by this time next week on our next show. It will be Game 5. Like I said, it'll be 2-2 at that point. Hurricanes going to win that game at home, and then it's going to be closed out by Game 6, and then we're going to see Hurricanes in Dallas in the Stanley Cup Finals. All right, guys. Well, great show. We'll do this all again next week. Until then, as always, keep on traveling.